Now, the king of cuisine, Peter Dills. Another restaurant show, right? No, it's Peter Dills, the king of cuisine.
That's right, everybody. That means it's time for another Facebook Live show. Well, you might be listening to this on Spotify, SoundCloud, podcast. We do it all. Albert Rivera is here. The Turtle is my sidekick and making all the things happen with all the buttons. Turtle, we're commercial free today.
Yes, we are. It's a great day to be in the Peter Dills universe, might I add.
Talking about one of my favorite subjects.
What's your favorite? Wine. Yes, we have our guest. I just showed a little bit of our guest right now.
Yeah, that's Anthony Riboli. He is the winemaker for the San Antonio Winery, Madalena Vineyards, downtown L.A., Paso Robles, all over Southern California, all over Paso Robles. Anthony Riboli is here, and we are going, Turtle, we're going to talk about wine. And who else better to talk about wine than Anthony?
I can't wait.
Anthony, welcome. Why don't we just welcome you in right away?
Yeah.
Of course. Thank you, Peter. It's good to be back. It's been too long.
It's been a while, but actually, so the only hindrance to our madness this afternoon, this Wednesday afternoon, is since we are actually live on Skype, I won't be able to see any questions or comments that people put on Facebook. Turtle, will you be able to see that, or is that?
Yeah. I'll be monitoring the chat, as they say, as we talk some hot wine.
Yeah, well, no, that is hot. Anything hot is the enemy of wine. That's what I actually learned that from Anthony when we did a show on PBS 4 or 5 years ago. Anthony said heat is not the wine's friend. All right, the wine story of California begins with the Spanish missions, the first of which was located in San Diego in 1769. Franciscan missionaries were established throughout California and remained in operation until 1834. Grapes were made from low-quality wine and brandy. Although a French immigrant was the first to plant European grapes in Los Angeles in the 1830s, it wasn't until 1857 when Hungarian-born Count Agostino Hathawayze established the Buena Vista Winery near Sonoma, and the Buena Vista Winery is still in existence today. How's that?
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right, so we got Anthony Riboli, and I thought the conversation today would be epic, would be the history of wine in California. So, Anthony, I'll let you take over from here. What is the history of wine in California, and how did they decide that grapes would grow well in California?
Well, as you mentioned, Peter, I think initially it was, the missionaries were bringing, the part of their culture. I think that's the whole piece about wine that many people forget when you talk about history is this is just like bringing your bread with you or your corn or, whatever your staples were. Wine was a staple. Wine was, important to daily life. So planting vineyards was just part of what the missionaries did as they moved from mission to mission and established, I forget how many there were, 13 or something like that. There were quite a few, maybe more. But that just, I think, began the process. And then once those grapes, did do well, even though they were varieties we don't grow today so much, things like Mission. There was actually a grape called Mission, which was a pretty low quality grape, but was planted extensively by the missionaries. So I think once you began to see the different varietals planted, and here in Southern California, a gentleman named Jean-Louis Vignier, a Frenchman, he planted the first commercial vineyard, and that was around, I think, early 1900s, if not late 1800s, and that kind of began the change, though, of improving quality of wine. And, keep in mind, though, wine quality 100 years ago was very different from what it is today. And so, that just began, and I think the climate and just California being that, we typically don't have really difficult winters and we have a, warm climate just really allowed grapevines to survive and thrive.
Okay, you talk about grapevines and then the different people that came over here to establish their own wineries. Were they importing, or were they bringing over vines from Europe and places like that?
Yeah, so I think, whether it was Jean-Louis Vignier or you mentioned Augustine Ashkenazi, I think is the last name, and
yeah,
the last name.
Something like that.
Something like that. They all would just bring cuttings. So today that's illegal. Today you cannot bring cuttings of grapevines due to viruses or pests or things like that. But back then, literally it was considered, suitcase cuttings that people would put in their suitcase and bring to the country. So that happened for many, many, many years. I mean, that continued probably into the 1960s even and 70s, where people would just bring cuttings in, and then the government really began to try to prevent diseases from spreading by doing that. But these were just, I think, entrepreneurs, frankly, or people just bringing cuttings again. It was part of their life, part of their culture, and they wanted to keep that peace when they came to the New World.
What was San Antonio Winery then? That leads me to my question. Then how did you guys? What was your first planting of grapes?
So 1917 was when my great uncle started the winery, and again, Southern California, as we know it, and Los Angeles especially, was not what it is today. So we had grapevines were growing all over. I mean, where I live in Pasadena, there were grapevines on the foothills, out in Cucamonga, out in that area, Fontana, Burbank, places you don't even think of vines there were. So my great uncle, his vision was simply to have a small, really just almost like a liquor store, if you will, was kind of how we would sell many things. But the Italian immigrants were working at the Southern Pacific Railroad, which is still right down the street from our location today. And his idea was very simple. When people would take that trolley car in, or they'd walk to work, they'd bring the empty glass jug and drop it off in the morning, and then he'd have it filled and ready to go when they went back home in the evening after their daily work. So very much just a simple entrepreneur that saw an opportunity, as this Italian population was growing.
When do you think that keeping with our history theme, when do you think the explosion of California wines first took place? Or let me rephrase that question, the acceptance of California wines.
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I think that California wines on a global, let's say, standpoint, that took a long time. I mean, I think if you look back to probably Robert Mondavi in the 60s and some of those famous competitions, right, where there are French wines mixed in with California wines, and the judges didn't know which there were. That was back, I believe, in the 70s or the 60s, right? So I think that really brought California to the forefront. But prior to that, most of the wine, as you know, were not, as we think of a Cabernet Sauvignon, which is on the label and reads Cabernet Sauvignon. These were mainly blends, and especially as you went back. So go back all the way to my great uncle's time, early in 1900s, and people were drinking red blends. They were blends of Zinfandel and Carignan and Grenache. All these varieties were all blended together, and that was considered normal. That was acceptable. No one expected a single varietal on the label. So also dessert wines were very popular from California, and fortified dessert wines. So something like a muscat, you would form muscatel, where you'd actually add alcohol, brandy, to a fermentation, and you'd be left kind of like when you make port, but it would be a sweet white wine even, and these fortified wines were very popular as well. So it took a very long time. If you do the math, 60, 70 years of really beginning the process and then getting consumers to think of California for high quality wine, really I think is the 60s. And then since then, you've seen an incredible snowball effect where, now California, and in particular, let's be honest, Napa Valley has just a very, very worldwide reputation for wine quality.
So it's Peter Dills. We're going to call, I guess normally the show is called Dining with Dills, but in case you just happen to be listening on the podcast, Spotify, SoundCloud, that's Anthony Riboli that we're actually interviewing, and he is the winemaker for the San Antonio Winery throughout Southern California, headquartered there on Lamar Street in L.A., which leads me to my next question, Anthony. How are the grapes shipped to the winery in downtown LA? Are they let's just use Paso Robles. Are they are the grapes sent to you from Paso Robles, or are they already squeezed up in Paso Robles and sent to you down there in LA?
So it's a great question. So once upon a time, as I mentioned, all of the vines were local. So, back in my grandfather's day and my great-great-uncle's day, they were, buying grapes and making wine and bringing those grapes right here to downtown Los Angeles from all of Southern California. As those vineyards disappeared, we then had to shift our focus, and that shift, went to Napa, Sonoma, and then Monterey County, and also Paso Robles over the last, 30, 40 years. And so typically what we do, and we still do this today, when we're picking white wine, you grapes, you don't need the skin. So Chardonnay, for example, if we're picking Chardonnay in Monterey from our own vineyards that we own, we would pick those and we would take the juice, because you really only need the juice to make white wine. The skin doesn't offer any benefit. And so what we'll do is de-juice. That's actually the term, is remove that juice by putting those grapes into what's called a press. But it's not the kind of press you think that it's very gentle. It's like a large balloon inside, and it gently opens up, and those grapes are pressed against the inside of this big canister, and they gently remove all that juice. So that juice then is chilled, very cold, and brought here. So it's actually juice in refrigerated milk tankers. Think of those big stainless steel refrigerated milk tankers, and they'll come here, and then we will still ferment on site all of our whites and rosés. Now, reds are a little trickier because you need that skin for your color, right, and your tannin. And so we stopped fermenting red grapes here back in the 60s, just because what do you do with all those skins and seeds after you fermented the wine? Where are you going to put that? We don't have vineyards right here in downtown LA to use that compost, right? So today we ferment all of our reds in Paso Robles. So we have a state-of-the-art winery in Paso Robles, and the benefit is all of that compost can be used for vineyard nutrient. It can be used for cattle feed. So you're really, completing the cycle where you're not just dumping all that product literally into a landfill.
Okay, so the white wines are finished in LA, the red wines in Paso Robles.
Right, and we still bottle here though. So the red wines, let's say we've fermented and we've done our barrel aging and that process, we'll still bring that red wine in, again, the same refrigerated milk tankers down to Los Angeles and bottle here. So we still bottle pretty much everything we make right here in Los Angeles.
Turtle, do you understand what he just said?
Yeah. I'm just trying to.
Because I get it, but because I've interviewed him like 5 or 6 times. But for the people that are watching on Facebook and listening on Spotify and everything else like that, I just want to make sure that we're keeping it simple enough that people understand the process of making wine.
I mean, you know what? I enjoy the process, but I enjoy drinking it a lot more. That's just kind of where I would like to.
Okay. I won't argue with that one. I won't argue with Turtle.
All right. So San Antonio Winery, Madalena, obviously, just I guess a few days ago, the governor has opened up the restaurants for outside dining, probably a little too cold for the next few days. But I know that statistics say that probably about 97% of your business has been done on the supermarket level. What are the plans going forward to, I don't know, help the restaurants or get back into the restaurant game?
No, that's a great question. I mean, certainly, we've been impacted. My grandmother started the restaurant here that's inside of the winery in downtown Los Angeles over 45 years ago. So we've seen, a lot of decades of change, but there's no question that this, 2020 and even 2021 has just been very dramatic for the restaurant industry. So we're excited, obviously, to get our employees back to work and get everybody. To go is difficult for most restaurants. Most restaurants aren't based on to go. So we, even though it's outdoors, once this rain passes, we're going to have heaters out and all that. But I think just selling wine to restaurants and continuing to support local restaurants, I think that it's just important that the industry sticks together. And I do hope there's some government support out there because, frankly, I'd love to see some science that proved that shutting restaurants helped slow down COVID. And I don't think it did based on the numbers that we've been experiencing.
I don't think anything could slow down COVID, but that's for another show. All right, Prohibition. How did you guys manage to get through Prohibition? Because I wanted this to be more of a history report, but I thought that the Prohibition, the way you guys got through Prohibition was meaningful for history.
Absolutely. Well, we, it's luck and maybe holy intervention, if you will, but my great-great-uncle was a very devout Catholic, and so, he started the winery in 1917. Well, Prohibition occurs in 1919, I believe, and no one saw that coming. If you look at some of the old photos we have here, the Italian Hall, people were eating and drinking. There was a bottle of wine at every place seating in the Italian Hall in 1919. Italians and other ethnic groups that wine was part of their culture, these immigrants, taking away wine was like taking away pasta or bread or it was a foundation of life. And so no one thought it was going to happen. So once it did, luckily, he had very good relationships with just some of the local churches right here in the city of Los Angeles, and they granted him permission to make wine for the daily mass. So at least there was a little bit of income, but sadly, prior to Prohibition, there were over 100 little wineries here in Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles. After Prohibition, fewer than 10 survived. So it really obliterated the industry.
So we're talking to Anthony Riboli. He's the winemaker for San Antonio Winery, Madalena Vineyard, San Simeon. Give me a few more of the wines that are familiar with our listeners and viewers, and we know that they can pick them up at Vaughn's, but some of the staple items, some of the staple SKUs that our viewers and listeners can go to their local supermarket and pick up, or their local restaurants once those open up.
Absolutely. Well, of course, San Antonio is our traditional name and our original name, named for St. Anthony, who was my great-great-uncle's patron saint. So that we do have a line of wines that are more traditional. They're also a little more semi-sweet, like the San Antonio Cardinale. But from our vineyards in Paso Robles and Monterey, I always lead with San Simeon. San Simeon is a brand that we've owned for many, many years, probably 40 years now. But the San Simeon Cabernet from Paso Robles, I think, is an incredible value, great wine. And the Chardonnay from Monterey is also just a really, really great wine for San Simeon. Madalena, which is my grandmother's name. She just turned 98, by the way. She just got her first COVID shot, so we're happy about that. Yeah. And but she has a brand that she created back 40, 50 years ago called Madalena. And, that brand also is pretty widely available here in Southern California. Again, Cabernet, Chardonnay, really nice Pinot Grigio, even a Rosé. So, and finally we have one called Opaque, which is a little harder to find, but it's more obscure, dark-colored varietals like, Zinfandel and Petit Verdot. These are varieties that are a little more obscure, but worth the search. And again, We're getting back. Our tasting room is still open. I don't know if we'll be allowed to do tastings yet. I think that's coming back. But come visit us and come try the wines, and then go to your local Vons and other retailers and ask for our wines, please, if they don't have them.
And we got Valentine's Day right around the corner, and I'm sure that we'll be able to get some Stella Rosa. That's always a good Valentine's Day wine as well.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that was Anthony Riboli, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Peter.
I said 20 minutes, and it was right on call, 20 minutes. For more information, I think Turtle put together a placard for you, but for more information, go to sanantoniowinery.com, and, of course, you can follow them on Instagram and Facebook.
Thanks, Peter and Turtle. And, Peter, it's good to be back. I missed our little chat, so next time you're ready, you let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Take
That's
care,
Anthony
everybody.
Riboli. All right, San Antonio Winery, the history of wine. All right, Turtle, it's you and me time, I guess. You and I time. You and me time.
All right. I'm just, I'm taking.
Rid of Anthony. You just got rid of him.
I'm just, taking on this extra, directing. So it's.
Yeah, you do this. All right. So that was cool. So if you're listening again on Facebook or watching on Facebook, welcome. And I haven't looked yet to see how we're doing, but we usually get 600 or 700 people to watch it, and if you like it, you can share it, right? If you think this was interesting. I thought it was pretty friggin' damn good. Is that Eddie Van Halen's studio, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, good.
He's not using it, so.
Back there. And then I'm at some vineyard up in Napa or up in Carneros. I'm not sure where I'm at, but. Yeah, if you're enjoying the show on podcasts, it's something you want to subscribe to. And if you miss anything, well, what am I missing? YouTube. We'll be on. It's important that for right now that we're kind of out with we don't have a particular radio station that we're aligned to. We're trying, but this is kind of cool. Just kind of good way to keep in touch with us is through podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. You know what, Peter? I did have a question for you, though, that I wanted to talk. This is something that we said earlier. And yesterday you called me because we were talking about the show. And you were kind of concerned that I was having dinner like at 4:30 in the afternoon, right?
You're like an old man. Like in Europe, that might be they don't eat until I think 10 o'clock at night. But I was like, Turtle, what are you doing? Oh, I'm having dinner. I go 4:30. Tell me.
All
right.
Well, what time do you usually have dinner?
6:30. I might go to. I still got. Remember that gift card that they gave me when we were at Boa Steakhouse?
Yeah.
I'm looking at it right now. I got $100 to Sushi Roko. So I might after the show. I'm watching Netflix right now. I'm watching a show called Turn.
Okay, you finished The Kingdom.
I finished The Kingdom.
What's
up, baby?
I was just about to start that, so
yeah,
I wanted to check that out.
Hey, that's another show. We could have a full Netflix show on our thoughts on that. But all right, so it's time. Are you ready? Or you got the sound effects ready?
Well, here's the thing. I can't do the echo.
Okay,
but we could still go. This is new for me, both me and Peter. We're still trying to figure out the.
We're doing so far. No kinks.
Oh, well, we had a few. Eric Chan's been helping us.
Not any of them. Well, you got a mixing board in your mouth right now.
Oh, really? Starving.
I should give you. I've got so much wine behind me right now. It's too bad I didn't. We'll work on the cameras too. I thought today was a lot. Last week, the cheese guy was a great interview, but it was boring. So from now on, boring in the sense that it would have been great if he was on Skype like Anthony was on Skype, right?
Right.
We could have seen him eating the cheese and explaining it.
Right. We're still working on it, getting it right,
This is much better. So if you own a restaurant or you own something and you have Skype, we'll consider having you on the show, but you have to have Skype. It's easy. I figured it out, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. Okay, it is time for Believe It or Not. You can leave us a voicemail, 626-765-7543, 626-765-7543. Are you ready for Believe It or Not, Turtle?
I'm ready.
All right. Believe it or not, the statue of Lenin converted into Darth Vader in the Ukraine. Believe it or not, Disney has revealed The Great Gatsby will be remade with the Muppets. I believe that. Believe it or not, Oklahoma, you spelled Oklahoma wrong, by the way.
Did I?
Yeah, you spelled it Oak. Oklahoma has proposed a bill that will establish Bigfoot hunting season. Abraham Lincoln once penned a true crime tale. Pecan Noodle Parlor is the oldest Chinese restaurant in the United States. It's located in Butte, Montana. Now, why would you come up with that unless that's not accurate? Okay, so I'm believing the Pecan Noodle Parlor right away.
All right. No, that's true.
I haven't given you my answer.
You just did.
Well, no. Wait a minute. So there is no pecan place in Montana?
No, there is.
That's what I meant.
Sure, Peter.
No, rewind the tape. That's true. Why would you put it? That's true.
Okay.
So that's wrong. You owe me a correct buzzer. Pecan noodle. I'm saying I believe it because why would you put it on there? You were a little fast with the buzzer there, my friend.
Okay, here. There.
Good. So the pecan one is true.
Oh, man. So now I just made it easier for you.
Okay. Yeah. Abraham Lincoln once penned a true crime tale. It must be true. Why would you put that on there? Your question is so short. No. See, my thinking is that Oklahoma has proposed a bill that would establish Bigfoot hunting season. I think that's ridiculous. I think that's false. But don't push any buttons. I'm going to go with it just because knowing you, that must be true. I don't know why or how. The Ozarks would seem more of a natural fit for big hunting season. Okay. Disney has revealed The Great Gatsby will be made with Muppets. That seems legit. The statue of Lenin converted into Darth Vader. It's got to be the Bigfoot or the Ukraine, and I got to pick. I'm going to go with the statue of Lenin converted into Darth Vader in the Ukraine. So, I mean, what was that official? I don't see. You don't give me much.
So what are we saying? What are we saying, Peter? Because
someone's proposed a bill that is. What does everybody out there say? Mike Dobbs, what do you say?
Let's see.
Oklahoma's proposed a bill that has established a Bigfoot hunting season.
People are saying that I was too quick on the buzzard on that last guess, so people are agreeing with you.
All right. Yeah. All right. I'm going to say fudge it. Abraham Lincoln once penned a true crime tale. False.
No, he did. He did. Can you believe it? Or not?
All right, then I guess it's statue of Lenin converted into Darth Vader in the Ukraine.
No, they did. Actually, it's all part of their whole like thing to change the ideology of their communist regime during their time that they were communists. So they're changing all their statues to just reflect something else. And they picked Darth Vader. Imagine if aliens land, Peter. They're like, who is this guy? Why is there a statue? He must be real.
Oklahoma proposed a bill to establish Bigfoot hunting season.
They did. Can you actually believe that?
That I believe. I mean, I thought it would be the Ozarks, but okay. So Disney is not doing a Great Gatsby remake of the movie.
They are not. They are not.
Well, why did you think of that? How did you think of that? Why would you? What obsessed you to think of the Great Gatsby remade with Muppets?
Because the Great Gatsby right now just went on. After a certain amount of years, something will become untrademarked or it'll be open sourced. so to speak.
Yeah.
And The Great Gatsby just became that. So now that it's done, I'm like, I love the Muppets. And now that the Muppets have a brand new show coming out, or they're actually visiting the old, Muppet Show, and they're going to put all 5 seasons out. I was like, man, this would be a perfect time for them to revitalize and, do that. Remember what did they do? They did Treasure Island. They remade A Christmas Carol. So
I think Christie, didn't they do like a spot? Not a Agatha Christie, like a like Who Done It? Didn't they?
Yeah, they did one of those. So this would just be like a perfect time for the Muppets to make their comeback instead of just sitting on the shelf.
All right.
And ironically, you're wearing a Disney shirt.
Oh. Yeah. All right, Turtle. Anything else? Before we get into the
Oh yeah.
the closing? No, I'm saying, do you have any?
No.
The restaurants are kind of reopening. It's too cold to go out right now, but we'll see. We'll report back. Thank you to you. Thank you to Anthony from San Antonio Winery. If you missed any part of this, it's looping again on Facebook, but it will also be on YouTube. All right. If you missed any part of the show, you can stream us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify. Please follow me, Peter Dills, on Facebook and YouTube. Watch the replay of the show, and all links, I hope, fingers crossed, are available on diningwithdills.com. And now it is time for my food for thought. Success is the sum of small efforts, repeated day in, day out. Rinse out. Thank you for that. It's a wrap up. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, I'll see you at my dining table.
Dining with Dills. You're dining with Dills. Dining with Dills. You're gonna get your delicious fill. Yeah, dining with Dills. It's all good.